Good morning. I am so blessed to be here, and my sermon is called My Favorite Word is the F Word. Maybe most of you are wondering what my most favorite word is that could be that starts with F. My favorite F word used to be a four-letter word, and when I was younger. I'm not going to lie, I have used this word and maybe even in my adult years when angry, but as time has gone on, I have grown in the Lord. I have changed it to a five-letter word. I will give you a hint to what it could be. This word is not based on proof. It is a word commonly used but not understood. It is a word that is a gift from God, not because we deserve it. It is a word that distinguishes who belongs to God and who does not. It is a word we cannot buy, sell, or give it away. It is a word that means you will succeed despite setbacks. It is a word that when you're in a challenging situation, you know God is going to work it out. It is a word that is not transferable, but can be contagious. In my lifetime, I have questioned this word. Times when I was young, I have lost it. And in times when I was stronger with trials, I wavered in it. In most recent years, I was doubting it when I was going through my divorce. I was wondering, was God still there? Was he hearing me when I screamed out to him? What was I supposed to do? Are you there, God? Why aren't you answering me? My trust and confidence that everything was going to be okay was slowly going away. My tears, my desperation was all becoming too much. If anyone in here has gone through a divorce, maybe someone has felt these feelings and also has screamed out to God. Or maybe during another tough choice, I felt alone, abandoned, and people in my church were telling me I was ruining my ministry and my relationship with God. I was not in a pleasant place. That is where I was depressed, saddened, and losing the word and questioning God. I got divorced, and then a little over a month later, I woke up in a hospital completely paralyzed, could not talk, and thought, what has happened to me? Funny thing about life, you can go buy a pizza for your kid, be 5 minutes from home, and your life is turned upside down extremely to the point where you are knocking on death's door. I was so close to seeing paradise, and my life was coming to an end. The best thing about life is God has the last say. Then after something like this happens in your life, this word is all you have. It took me a little bit to remember this word after my coma. At first I thought, was I being punished? Was God angry with me? Were all those people right? Did I ruin my relationship with God? Funny thing about the mind is you must be careful to whom you are listening. God saw I had a problem remembering, so he sent me someone to clear it up, the confusion. In walked a pastor at the hospital, and I had all the same questions for him that I just spoke about. He told me that God was not punishing me, and he loved me, and I needed to believe myself and allow God to come into my life and take control. I remember Matthew 4:31. This word is like a grain of mustard seed, which was sown on the ground, is the smallest of all seeds on earth. Jesus said in Mark 9:23, if you can believe, all things are possible for one who believes. If you have not figured out the word by now, my favorite five-letter word is faith. I need to rely on my support system. I needed to trust God even though I had no idea if my situation was ever going to change. Was I ever going to walk again, talk again? Was I ever going to get over my brain injury? Was I ever going to look like myself again? When you have no idea the outcome, faith is all you have. Faith is complete trust and confidence that God will fulfill his purposes. I had to trust God. When I started to trust God, it was like I tapped into a major energy source. I tapped into an energy source like a tornado, and I allowed God to take control of the situation, and we are going to do this together. Luke 1:37 says, for with God, Nothing is impossible. Okay, I have my power source, and nothing is impossible. When I got to Gaylord, I woke up every morning, and God and I discussed what my goals were for the day. My team of doctors, nurses came in every morning to assess me, and they jumped on the God bandwagon with me and started to ask, what did you and God talk about, and what goals do you want to accomplish for the day? I had to complete trust in him, and I even told the doctors that I'm going to walk out of Gaylord. At the time, I could not walk or do anything. I had to relearn everything like a child does. And James 1:6 says, but let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. I believed with my whole being I was going to walk again, and nobody, and I mean nobody, could tell me differently. When the doctors told my mom I was never going to walk again, she told the doctors, you do not know my daughter very well. So even she believed I was going to walk again. God is not asking you to figure it out. God is asking you to trust that he already has. I absolutely could not have done what I did without faith. And when everything seems hopeless, believe anyways. Romans 4:20-21 says, when everything is hopeless, Abraham did not waver at the promise of God through unbelief, but what was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God and fully convinced that what he had promised, he was also able to perform. This is such a powerful statement to me. I was lying in a hospital bed. I was paralyzed, had no muscle function, could not talk, damaged spinal cord, broken neck with a neck brace, and I believed like Abraham, I was going to walk again. Faith does not make things easy, it makes them possible. I'm told faith means forwarding all your issues to heaven. So I forwarded my issue to God. I could not do it alone. I came into this accident paralyzed, and my diagnosis was I was going to be wheelchair bound. Yet I walked out of Gaylord. Faith was my light at the end of this very dark tunnel I was in. I always like to see the two sides to every story. There's also 2 points of views. Unfortunately, this progress of me walking again does not happen for everyone. Just ask my boyfriend. But we also have to have faith that God knows the puzzle because he has already put it all together. We just have the pieces, and we're trying to make sense of it all, so it goes both ways. You still need to continue to have faith even though things did not work out how you envisioned, or even if you did not get your prayers answered. Joel Osteen has quoted, I believe if you keep the faith, you keep trust, you keep the right attitude. If you're grateful, you will see God open new doors. God will open a new door. It doesn't say God will give you everything you want exactly how you envision. So I say I didn't walk again. Do I give up on God like a lot of people do when terrible things happen to them? People ask, why me? Some turn to faithfulness, doubt, and wonder why or what we did to deserve it. Some blame God and turn away from him. That happened when my 18-year-old brother died. My stepmother blamed God and turned away from him after she had been such a loyal God supporter. She thought, how could God do this to her? James 1:3 says, because you know that testing of your faith produces perseverance. The first section of James is about being tested for toughness. James calls God's training regimen various kinds of trials. The trials that God allows strengthen the believer, and we must be confident of the good that God can do through it. Instead of blaming and turning away from God, we need to trust God that something good will come out of the situation. James 1:7-8 says, for let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is double-minded, unstable in all ways. True faith produces people who are stable, looking only to God for the wisdom they need, knowing that he will respond. Enough about me and faith. I'm going to continue to back it up scripturally, which to me is the most important. You need to always back up what you're saying with proof in the Bible. I want to touch a little bit on a mustard seed before I go into my most favorite story about faith. A mustard seed is known for its faith because, having no other options like I did in my situation, you must choose to trust God and give everything you have to grow or die trying. It's a choice we have. A mustard seed is something you plant. It is the smallest seed on earth, but when it grows, it becomes the greatest among herbs and grows to enormous size. That is what God says how much faith you need. Small like a mustard seed. It's small, but when it grows inadequate, it can move mountains. The kingdom of heaven has been described to be like a mustard seed in Matthew 13:31-32. Another great story about faith is a story I grew up on, Noah's Ark. Here's a man who was told in Hebrews 11:7, by faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world, became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. Can you imagine if you were Noah? God, you want me to do what? I am 500 years old, just became a father. I'm approaching retirement age, and you want me to build this gigantic ark that will house thousands of animals and food to feed them and my family, and I have never seen rain? Rain? What is that? Can you imagine what would be going through your mind? The thought of what was going through Noah's mind is just speculation, because it says in Genesis 6:22, Noah did everything just as God commanded. Says the exact same thing in Genesis 7:5. Why was Noah chosen? For the same reason anyone is chosen, because he found grace, the undeserved favor of God. Genesis 6:8 says so, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. This ark was huge. It has 3 stories. The ark was not a ship. It was a floating box intended to keep living things from drowning, and it took Noah and his 3 sons about 100 years to build. Noah could not understand what God was telling him for past experiences, but only by faith. He obeyed and believed God by faith. Sometimes people want to select what to believe, but not Noah. He did all that God commanded him. I've heard stories about how Noah was mocked or ridiculed while he was building the ark, when they have never seen rain before. Looking through the scriptures, there was no mention of that or evidence that happened. I did find in Matthew 24:37-39, as it was in the days of Noah, so it was in the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and given in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Honestly, that is how life is. Noah was 600 years old, and him and his family boarded the ark, and 7 of all clean and 2 of all unclean animals. God himself shuts him in when all the preparations were complete. Then the journey began. He was on a ship for 370 days. Day 370, God tells Noah to leave the ark with his family and all the animals. Noah's faith, obedience, and righteousness has been outstanding throughout it all. This story is the absolute definition of faith. Faith is trusting God even when you do not understand his plan. I have told my kids from time to time that when they were young, that love is an action word. The same thing goes for faith. It is an action word. Even if you fear the task that God has asked you, do it anyways. Even if you do not understand why, do it anyways. Even if the situation or task has come at an inconvenient time, do it anyways. Obey even if you do not understand. Hebrews 11:29 says, by faith, The people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. Faith includes acting on that faith in one's life by serving God and obeying his commandments. Increase your faith by drawing closer to God through prayer and study his word. If you want to read more about faith, you can go to Hebrews chapter 11. It is the Bible's hall of faith. In my Bible summary, it says that faith helps humankind understand in a way that science cannot, giving insight into its creator and designer. I love that. There are many people in the Bible to research about faith, but another person that stands out to me is Job. He was being tested with human suffering that God gave permission to Satan to test him to prove his faithfulness, because Satan accused Job of the only being unfaithful because God blesses him. Even though Satan believed Job was insincere in his faith, Job did not let anything that happened to him make a sinner out of him. He did not turn evil because evil came upon him. The things that sometimes troubles people is God gave permission to prove his faithfulness through suffering. Sometimes we are tested, but these are the moments you do not curse God, question God, or become angry with God like some people do. I have learned these are the moments you need to trust in the Redeemer the most. We again don't have all the facts or why something is happening to us, but we need to remember that God is still good and just. Continue to have faith through the storm. There can only be godly purposes in suffering. I'm learning that lesson right now. Believers trust in the Lord with your whole heart, even though our suffering is not always clear, but only to God. Please read Job, because it has many other teaching points like redemption, suffering, and judgment, encouraging and discouraging, just to name a few. I leave you on something to ponder, a prayer. Some take-homes on how to strengthen your faith. For the unbeliever, seeing is believing. For the believer, believing is seeing. Every big act for God begins with a small step of faith. Martin Luther King said, faith is taking the first step even when you do not see the whole staircase. My prayer for all of you comes out of Ephesians 3:16 through 17. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that for you, being rooted and established in love. Some take-homes. Faith gives purpose and direction in life. Faith is based in the heart. We act in faith when there is no guarantee. Having faith means you believe our God is able, even when you don't understand. When your faith is tested, you persevere, and endurance has a chance to grow. Finally, how can we strengthen our faith? Spend time with God and allow God to care for you and empower you. Keep faith as a daily part of your life. Find scriptures to strengthen your knowledge, and pray, pray, pray. I can't stress how important prayer is. It allows us to stay close to God. Amen. God bless.